Okay, so aren't all churches technically church plants of Catholics?
Are they all technically church plants of Catholics?
Yeah.
No.
Aren't
they? No, they're not at all.
Are we sure?
100% positive.
Or are they all church splits of Catholics?
They're not that either.
Or both?
Okay, well, some of them are. All right. Okay, so to be clear, the Roman Catholic Church wasn't like Jesus didn't start. Okay, well, I'm going to get in trouble for this, but all right. Jesus did not start the Roman Catholic Church, okay? And so this is what I'm going to say.
Wait a minute.
I know. So this is what I'm going to say.
Okay.
And even in the book of Acts, right?
Okay.
Churches are being planted in all of these various cities.
Catholic churches.
No. Okay. No, sir. They're not Catholic churches.
Okay.
All right. It's just church. It's just churches. Okay. And the churches look different depending on the city they're in. They're going.
So where was the first church ever?
The first church ever would be in Jerusalem.
Okay.
Yeah. And so
we're all church plants of them.
Of Jerusalem. Well, okay. Again, it's just where it gets. All right. You have the apostles that are in Jerusalem, right? So without question, that's where it all starts. So on the day of Pentecost, okay, the Feast of Pentecost, the book of Acts, chapter 2, the multitude gets saved, okay? So I say multitude. So a few thousand get saved in one day, and it says that they start meeting. So in Acts chapter 2, it says they start meeting from house to house as well as in the temples, okay?
Okay.
And so the early church is meeting, they have house churches, and they're meeting and they're going to the temple for hours of prayer, for worship, all those kind of things. Because remember, the first Christians are Jews.
The Jew temples.
Yes.
Okay.
So they're Jews, and so they're going there, and then the persecution begins to happen.
Was that a fight about letting Christians into the Jew temples?
Yeah, and so at a certain point within the first century, Jewish temples begin to disallow Christians from coming in. There begins to be a separation point. For a long time, they continue, because they were Jews, they continued to go to the temple, okay? And so they would go on their Sabbath to temple to worship. Like that was still a part of who they were, okay? And so eventually that does change. But to get to the church planting part, persecution happens, okay, in Jerusalem. They begin to be spread throughout Judea and Samaria. This is actually fulfilling Acts chapter 1, verse 8, where Jesus says, when the Holy Spirit comes upon you, you'll be my witnesses in Jerusalem, which they were, in Judea and Samaria. And so you see that happening. They begin to spread throughout Judea and Samaria. And so now they're leading people to Christ in those areas, establishing churches there. And remember, by establishing churches, we just mean establishing gatherings of believers. They might gather in homes. They might gather under a tree, near a river, or whatever, right? But these gatherings, okay, of people. And then so Judea, Samaria, and then eventually we have individuals like Peter, like Paul, and others that begin to travel throughout the Mediterranean world. And now they're going and they're planting churches in other cities throughout the Mediterranean world. All right. And it's both Jew and Gentile at this point. Okay. And so now and so Paul may be planting some of them, but remember, Paul was never part of the original, Jewish group, if you were. Okay. So Paul
wasn't Jewish, right?
Yeah. Paul's Jewish.
Oh.
Yeah. Paul's Jewish, but his main mission was to Gentiles. He was, at least to the Gentile world. Okay.
So he was a Jew killing Christians before he became.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
For Jews.
Correct.
Oh.
So he was what they would call a zealot. So it was a sect of the Pharisees.
Okay.
And so he was a Pharisee, but a sect within that Pharisees as a zealot. And so where they actually believed that they were doing the right thing by killing these Christians who were blaspheming or they believed they were blaspheming by saying that Jesus was the Messiah. Okay. Right. And so you have this, so Saul, Saul, Paul, same person, right? So he and Barnabas are sent out from Antioch, And that's where they begin to make their missionary journeys, okay?
Okay.
So they're planting. Okay? So they're doing two things. They're planting churches, and they're going to areas where there's already gathered disciples, but maybe there's not leaders. They're helping those areas establish leaders. That's what Paul was doing when he sent Timothy to Ephesus, when he sent Titus out. Like, they're helping were these believers who are already gathering together to worship, to establish leadership and establish some structure within their churches. And Paul's doing this as well on his own missionary journeys, okay? And so you see that happening where he's planting churches, he's strengthening disciples that are already present, he's helping to organize groups, establish leadership, establish, structure, helping them understand the roles of the Psalms and the new hymns that are being written about Christ, the way that plays in, what these services are going to look like and entail, how the gifts of the Holy Spirit are going to be used and administrated, like all that stuff is happening, okay? And so, and then it keeps going from there. And so it's a much more organic form, okay?
Okay.
So it's not, so these churches are starting to make other churches and and they're spreading and that's the movement of the church, okay? And so it's very organic in a lot of ways, but obviously you have, the Roman Catholic Church, Greek Orthodox churches, they're planting other churches as they grow and they enter into new territories. They're absolutely planting churches. And then, yes, you do have to split away from the Catholic Church due to the Protestant Reformation. And then they begin planting, quote unquote, Protestant churches. And that's where you and I find ourselves today within the Protestant church world, and Protestant churches continue to plant churches. And so, So
we're all church plants of Jerusalem.
Yeah, every one of us could trace our roots all the way back to Jerusalem, 100%. Okay. Yeah. And
to what?
And to the Holy Spirit being poured out. And that's really where it all begins.
So he was the first church planter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I understand some people go like, well, hey, hold on. Jesus said that he was going to, that on this rock, he was going to build his church. So it absolutely,
the Catholic Church.
No, not the Catholic Church. So it absolutely is Jesus' church. I want to be right. We're all like, we understand that Christ is the head of the church. Like we understand that, but it is the Holy Spirit that's giving, that is being poured out, and that's why a lot of people refer to Acts 2 as really the beginning of the church.
Okay.
Because that's when, you had your few thousand people get saved, and they're starting to meet from house to house. And we see these commonalities in Acts 2, verse 42, that so they're gonna make sure that there's the apostles' teaching, that there's prayer, that there's fellowship, and that there's communion. Okay, and that happens. Or some people say communion, some people say a fellowship meal, whatever however you want to interpret that.
Okay.
So.